Welcome to the Business of Boutique Fitness podcast. I'm Heather Garrick. I'm the CMO of the Bespoke Marketing Division here at Studio Grow, and I'm really excited to be joined by Alina Cooper. Welcome, Alina.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you for having me today.
So we're going to talk about a thorny issue today, the dreaded situation where a competitor moves in nearby, same modality. Don't panic. We've got the plan for what to do. So what does it mean for us, and what's the plan of action going to be?
And I think this is, as you said, it's something we all dread, and rightly so to a degree. But actually, there's more than it just being a threat. We can actually see this as one of the best catalysts for growth. It can stop that complacency that sometimes when we've been open a while can happen. It forces us to sharpen our offering, to stay relevant and connect more deeply with our members and really reflect on whether we are truly in line with our core values and purpose and the vision of what we had for the business. And ultimately, we have two choices when someone moves in. We can panic, and we can see it as a chance to actually level up and to look at how we can improve ourselves, how we can stabilize our business, and how we can continue to grow. And I'm really a big believer that competition is healthy. It creates urgency. It pushes us to innovate, and it keeps us from becoming complacent.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, even if you're in the situation listening to this and you haven't had a competitor move in yet, there's going to be an awful lot of advice in this podcast that you should be following anyway, because it's all about how do you make sure that your business is always moving forward, is the best that it can be. And sometimes it takes a competitor moving in down the road to be the prompt for that, but it doesn't have to. And there's lots of things that you can put into action now to help kind of safeguard yourself against any competition. So, first off, what you want to do when a new competitor is opened is really let's get a good understanding of what they offer, who they are, who they're targeting. So this is where you want to be doing some really kind of structured competitor profiling. So making sure you're understanding what services they've got, get a list of those, the price and the different offers that they've got. See if you can get an understanding of what they're positioning their USP, their unique selling point as, and how that compares to your studio, because there are going to be differences. Even if you're offering the same modality, there are going to be differences. Get a sense of the overall atmosphere. So how to do that is get people along, try it out. If you're able to visit yourself, then great. Send other people to go and try the classes. Really get an understanding of the full end-to-end customer journey. And take a really good look at their digital presence. So what's their website saying? Who are they targeting? Really look into their reviews. If they've been open for a while, you can get into a sense of what it is that people like about it and what people don't. A good way of kind of being able to assess what they're doing is also if you are able to sign up to their mailing list. Don't sign up using your business account, but sign up using a kind of personal account or a way that they're not going to know that it's you. But just put yourself on their mailing list because it's great, and do this for multiple, even if it's not a competitor nearby you. Would recommend doing this for other studios that you admire or that you're looking to. See how they're communicating with people, what messages are going out. It's really helpful as well to see any kind of seasonal related offers that they've got coming, just so that you can be prepared and not caught out by that. So that's the start. It's like getting that kind of competitor profiling happening. Like once that's happening, what would you recommend, Alina, in terms of tips and tricks?
Yeah, there's quite a few things. I think to start with, and we touched on at the start if they're a similar modality to you, but I think also it's important to, if you've got someone of any new modality opening, it's important to look at them as well in exactly the same way you've just talked about, because as we know, only a certain percentage of people work out regularly. We know in boutique fitness who our demographic are in the most part. So they are going to be after the same market share as you. So you might be a Pilates studio, they might be yoga or spin, but ultimately you are probably targeting some of the same audience. And I think it's important to look at all modalities rather than just one, obviously even more so if it's a direct competitor. And I think as well, think about how you can gather public intelligence as well. Like you mentioned it already, but really dive into those reviews, that side of things, speak to clients, watch for comments on posts. If there's any local kind of Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups you're part of, just listen. And one of the big things that I always recommend is get curious before you get reactive. So actually just pause, because our natural instinct is to go, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do? But actually just take a moment, take a breath, and then find out what you can, because that will allow you to really see any gaps. And one particular example I have is a studio that I was working with quite a while ago, a small Pilates studio. They had a flashy new reformer studio open who had multiple locations, and they opened literally directly opposite them. And instead of slashing prices and panicking, the owner dealt with it so well. They attended a few of the classes once they opened. And the thing they did that really resonated with me and was a really take home for other studio owners is they weren't looking at it being purely a threat. They were looking at what the opportunity was. What was the weakness of this studio? And how could they fill that gap? And in this particular case, the new studio's instructors were a lot less experienced. The owner felt after doing multiple classes that the onboarding process was quite rushed. So instead of going, okay, I'm going to drop the price, I'm going to get into a bidding war, which we absolutely don't recommend, she doubled down on that personalized approach to it. She really focused on her client journey. She went back to basics. She reviewed what she had in her own studio, and she looked at gaps in her own studio that would provide a better experience than the other studio ultimately. So she looked at personalized welcome. She looked at the communication strategy. And not only did that highlight her her USPs compared to her competitors, but also increased her retention. So it actually had a positive knock-on effect to her business. So I think look for those opportunities. Don't get into that war of, or that negative headspace of, oh, they're flashier, they're newer, they've got more equipment than I've got. Think about the things that you are genuinely better at than them. And also, it goes without saying, but don't highlight their weaknesses. Highlight your benefits.
Yeah, no, I really love that point. I liked what you said about that curiosity too as well, because what we're not trying to do here is to destroy somebody else's business. This isn't a war. If you're in a kind of war mindset here with a competitor opening, we want you to put that out of your mind. It's not about that. What it's about is taking learnings of how you can improve your business based on the research that you've been doing about theirs, and how focusing on your own business rather than rushing to a race to the bottom or engaging any kind of negative tactics. It's not about that at all. It's all about positively, what can you take from this to make your own business better? So on a practical note, like what we'd recommend when we're saying doing this structured competitive profiling, once you've been out there doing that research, what's quite helpful is to have like a simple matrix, a little grid where you've got those success factors for you. So it might be like price, service, convenience, what the community is like, and give them a little bit of a rating, and be honest then and rate yourselves, or get somebody else to rate you if you want a kind of really honest opinion. And those numbers are going to enable you to compare and see where those opportunities lie for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we talked about right at the start, around embracing what the positives of this could be and looking ahead to the future, we know right now that the boutique fitness industry is thriving. Globally, it grew around 6.8% from 2020 to 2023. And it reached around 48 billion last year, which is huge compared to where we've been in this past, especially post-pandemic. And what we're projecting now is we're going to be hitting around 85 to 90 billion by 2030. So in the next 5 years, the growth is going to be huge. And that means there's more room for more than one player in the market. It means that there is opportunity for us to grow. It means that there's going to be more people for us to pull from, because there's going to be more people wanting to do boutique fitness. And what's important there is really knowing your edge and being true to what you do. Don't try to mimic and copy what others do. And the businesses that will thrive, and the businesses that thrive in some of the busiest places, busiest locations, whether it be when we flew out to LA last year, we counted 7 reformer studios on one street, and they were all packed. We couldn't get into a single class, and they knew their edge. They all knew what their USP was. They were all doing something slightly different. And I think the trick is really to see that a competitor arrival is not necessarily the market shrinking. It's actually quite the polar opposite. It's a proof that the location and niche are necessarily in demand. And like you mentioned, Heather, around the matrix, that allows you to see exactly where you're stronger. It allows you to see, you know, whether it's your convenience, your community, etc., that are the selling point. Like, what is that piece? And then you lean into that advantage. And one of the things we've seen we had a Legree studio that we opened, coming up to a year ago now through SYSP. And she was having a competitor that she was aware of because she'd done her analysis. She'd been keeping an eye on the market. She knew that a competitor was coming to her area, and they were about 12 months out from opening. And we talked a lot around what that looked like, what opportunity that presented to her. Because with certain modalities, they may be new in the market. And even if they're not, that person is then going to be increasing awareness of that particular modality. So more people are hearing about it. There's going to be more advertising out there. You know, so yes, there will be some challenges that come with that. You might see a slight increase in cost per lead, etc. But as long as you're planning for that, you can mitigate that. But actually, by looking ahead, looking at that opportunity, she could see that there was a real demand and this was going to grow the momentum. And in her area, she was the first Legree studio. So actually, huge opportunity for growth there.
Yeah, definitely. In the bespoke department, we do a lot of market research on behalf of clients who are looking at new locations to go into. And one of the things that we look at actually for an indicator of good success is that there are enough competitors around. We don't want to look at a market where they're going to be the only one, because you have to do a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting to start persuading that market that boutique fitness is right for them and that your modality is right for them. So it can be a real advantage having some competitors around you. And just while you were talking, I was reflecting on a conversation that we were having over lunch earlier on about like the reason why both of us love working in this industry so much. And one of it, which is that it's generally like really supportive, and that it's an industry where yes, there are competition, and yes, you want your business to do well, but overall we want to see the industry as a whole grow, because it's going to make, you know, the whole population healthier. Like, we're all in this, we're trying to expand this market. There are an awful lot of people who are just still totally untapped audience that we can bring boutique fitness to. So it's not a totally saturated market where everybody's doing boutique and we're all fighting over, you know, a tiny audience. It's growing all the time.
I think there's an opportunity there, Heather. And that's in that you may have a competitor, you may see them as a competitor, you may label them as a competitor, but actually, why not change the way you think about that? Why not reframe that? And as we know, both having worked in the industry for 15, 20 years, it's an industry where people are passionate about people. People are generally doing this because they genuinely care about the health of the nation, as you mentioned. And yes, there's always going to be some level of concern when you've got multiple operators, but actually go and make friends with them. I've certainly done that in the past. I've gone out there to welcome them. I've made them feel part of the community. So instead of, you don't want someone thinking that you're going head to head and having that animosity. Yeah. So yes, you are competitors. Yes, you're going to be pulling from some of the same pool. Yes, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. That's life. But why don't you think of that in a completely different way? And why don't you actually look at how you two can support each other? You're both going through some of the same challenges. And I'm not talking about you have to become the world's best friends, but actually having a good level of rapport, supporting each other, even to the extent of if an instructor calls in sick, they may have someone that could help you last minute. And I've seen that work really well in some markets.
Yeah. I think the other place where I've seen it work well, having this relationship with competitors, is in power against like aggregators and conversations, particularly when like quite aggressive aggregators coming into the market and people feeling like actually the prices are really, really being dampened down. Speaking to others and having an understanding of what people are getting paid out, and also making a decision of like, okay, well, how far do we want to go down this route, has been really helpful, and having those connections in the industry rather than people feeling like they're completely alone and negotiating against these huge corporations. So the regular meetups work really, really well, I think. So let's get into tactics then. So in terms of what we kind of want to put in place once there's competitors open. So first off, let's just talk about the ability to respond quickly. So we've spoken about monitoring what they're doing, having a look at kind of email campaigns, things that might be indicators of particular marketing activity your competitor's going to want to do. What you're going to want to make sure is that you are well placed to make any changes then quickly, should you need to. So whether that be kind of tweaks to your pricing, tweaks to your intro offers, as Alina, you were saying, having that advance notice of a competitor opening really might make you want to focus on committing people to longer term memberships now, so you're not having to deal with that issue. So fast response being really, really important.
Absolutely. And the first move matters, and we don't necessarily want to wait until they open. If we're doing our research, if we are aware enough, we should know at least 3 to 6 months out that competitor's coming. Whether you see them physically building out their space and having their bikes delivered or their reformers delivered, right the way through to if they're going to be a decent competitor, they are going to be doing pre-sale, they are going to be marketing. So don't wait until they open their doors. Start thinking and taking action straight away, because that first move really does matter. And think about quick wins that really create a buzz without going, I need to slash my prices, because you don't want to be in that bidding war. And that could be things like a 1-week challenge with a prize at the end that, again, just really strengthens that community piece within your space. It could be reflecting and looking at how you improve your client journey, your communication. It could be a bring a friend week, so you're becoming a little bit more proactive in your sales process during this time. You could introduce guest trainers, masterclasses. There's so many things you can do to differentiate yourself, and most importantly, add value, so your clients really perceive that value. And then, if you want to go a bit bigger, you've got your more guerrilla tactics. You've got those chalk art on the sidewalks, local cafe flyering, and upping that marketing. And the reality is, and Heather, I'd love your opinion on this as well, but my view has always been, if you know a competitor's coming, you've got to up your marketing. You're probably going to have to spend a little bit more than usual. You're going to have to be more creative, because you have to compete. And if you've been open for a while and you're at capacity, you've probably pulled back a little bit on your marketing spend. And actually, this might be the moment to ramp that up and actually start thinking about just protecting your business a little bit. And I am absolutely not talking about competing for their business name and going down that route of really aggressive tactics. What I'm talking about is staying true to your values of your business, communicating that, and just being a little bit more present in the community than you perhaps were before. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's where I would lean much more on the thing that you definitely know that you've got ahead of a competitor opening, which is reviews, member testimonials. That's the power that you've got against them. Is I'd be leading with that with my marketing, was really reinforcing that unique selling proposition, talking about what I've been delivering to the members, using real life video content if possible, from people speaking about how great your service is, and really reinforcing that and how you compare to a new competitor opening, because they're not going to be able to draw on that kind of richness of marketing. Then in the kind of the longer term, the kind of things that I'd be looking at would be just making sure that you are staying agile to keeping an eye on, particularly if there are kind of different trends within the industry. We've definitely seen people adjust their training formats, potentially bringing new formats in. So an example of this would be, I'm sure you're aware of kind of the rise of High Rocks, that if you are a gym that offers that kind of functional fitness and functional training, having some High Rocks classes on the schedule seems to be a real draw for many people. And so it's a way of like tweaking and adjusting the strategy, but based on consumer demand and how we're seeing trends change. You're able to see, like Google Trends is quite a useful tool for this. It's a free tool by Google where you're able to see changes in search terms over time. I'd recommend Reformer Pilates is a good example of one that you can put in for this, where you can really see how surges in demand for Reformer Pilates have happened recently. And you can break that down by country as well. If you want to look at your particular area for a particular modality. It's also useful if you're thinking of opening a studio, like compare and benchmark what are people searching for compared to other potential modalities. It's particularly a helpful thing to focus on.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of data out there. And innovation isn't just about new class formats. It's about, for me as well, how you connect with people And some of the best performing studios we're seeing are really embracing tech. They're really embracing looking at their CRM and how they can really make the most out of that, and also analyzing, is it the right CRM for them? And again, this prompt of a competitor is a great time to do this. But actually, as I think, Heather, you mentioned right at the start, you don't have to wait for a competitor. This is something, we should be reflecting on our businesses, regularly. It might be an annual overview, but you can break that down into quarterly. But your CRM is a really important thing, because not only does it allow you to track that data and give you the metrics to analyze your business, but also enables you to communicate more effectively with them. We also look at things like, in some of the successes, people embracing on-demand content for hybrid users. And not everybody wants to have a space that is hybrid, but we know that the stats show that actually a lot of consumers choose a space because they have both and engage with that. And the actual number eludes me right now, but I'm sure it was around 60% of users want to know that they've got that option, so that they do have options if they're traveling, if they're away, if they just can't get to the studio that week. We've also got things like wearable technology. And Heather, you and I have done many a talk on this topic. Mm-hmm. And this is an area that we're seeing a lot of studio owners really beginning to embrace, because it gives them such valuable data about their members. It allows the members to connect and really build that community. But again, it's got to be right for your audience and your clients. Mm-hmm. And then looking at segmentation tools. And this is something that most people don't do early in their studio journeys, or at least from what I've seen. But actually, as you build confidence, you've got experience, you've got much more of a grip and control over the running of your business, and you're not running around so frantically. Actually being able to look at how you segment your audience and communicate differently with different segments of your market is really important. We don't all just have one avatar in the most part. We will have several avatars in our studio, and actually how you communicate to a mum with 2 children is very different to how you are communicating to, Gen Z, Gen X, and the type of communication and the type of interactions. And to start with, the fact that we're communicating full stop is a great thing, but actually you can become a lot more targeted. So being first or even early in adopting some of these things can help you stay ahead of the curve and make you harder to compete with ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. So a few little tips on monitoring and how you can continuously improve. First off, very easy to set up Google Alerts. If you just search for Google Alerts, you can put in any search terms there, and what it will do, it will send you an email with whatever frequency you choose. I'd recommend just once a week is probably enough, for things that people are talking about online. So for example, if I had a studio here in Charlottesville, I might put in Pilates Charlottesville into my kind of Google Alerts, and anytime that featured in news, there were announcements happening, it would then send me an email summarising all of those at the end of the week. So that helps keep track on what's happening, what are people talking about. And you can set these up for multiple different search terms. Similarly, keep an eye on what's being said on social. So you can do that via your own accounts. If you do have a social media management tool, the likes of Hootsuite, then you can also set up alerts for people talking about particular topics that will be relevant for you. Mystery shop your own business. If you haven't got mystery shops already set up, then regular mystery shops are so useful at being able to give you feedback on how your business is doing, and then give those insights in what can be improved versus your competitors, and really just making sure that you're paying attention to the themes of any feedback that you're getting from your member surveys, and also how that would go and compare to what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, it's super useful. And I always think of competitor monitoring as the same as I would visiting the dentist. It's not something I just do once. It's not just a one-time fix. It's something that should be part of your routine. So, for example, every quarter, like you'd visit your dentist regularly, revisit your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. So that's SWOT analysis, or your success factor matrix. And ask yourself some hard questions. And like you said, you've got the opportunity to ask for feedback and things as well. But ask yourself, have my differentiators changed? Is there a new threat or opportunity coming? What are my retention numbers telling me? What are my sales numbers telling me? And that way, instead of being reactive, you're being proactive. You may not even have a competitor at this point, but it's allowing you to stay ahead rather than scrambling from when you're behind.
Yeah, makes sense. So to wrap up, don't panic. That's our number one takeaway. Your competitor's opening, there's no need to panic. We've got some steps that you can take. So first off, you want to be out there doing your research. Let's find out as much information as you can about what this offering is going to be. And that then enables you to reflect on your own business and the things that you're going to be able to change in order to kind of get ahead and stay ahead.
And long term, it's really simple. Double down on what makes you different. Keep innovating with your services and your offering, and never stop listening to your members and to your market ultimately. And the studios that are winning aren't the ones who ignore the competition. They're the ones that really embrace it and use it as fuel. They see that as an opportunity and they channel that energy ultimately. So they don't just survive a new competitor, they come out of it stronger. So we hope that you've enjoyed this episode today. Hopefully it has eased some of your concerns perhaps around a new competitor, or given you the oomph you needed to really revisit and look at some of the opportunities before that perhaps happens. So if you have liked it, please do like this episode. Please leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. Do share this with any fellow studio owners. As we mentioned, embrace making friends in the industry. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you for joining us today, Heather, as well. It's been great to chat.